So hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of the Fitness Network podcast. Today I am joined by Rob from TeamLRF. So Rob, give us a little quick intro on yourself. I mean, I know you are the leading coach in the UK and you have 15 Pro Card winners with your coaching services. So when did you also first get into bodybuilding? Things like that.
So firstly, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. And then to answer your question, so I was at Spurs as a kid playing football, and one summer I became incredibly overweight just through not doing anything. I was playing PlayStation and not really training or anything like that. And it came to a pre-season, and it was probably the most important pre-season because it was the year that you would get a scholarship or not.
Right.
So it was between the age, I think, about 15 or 16, and the first 2 days, they don't test your ability to play football, they test your fitness ability. And unfortunately, I fouled on the first day. So what they do is they cut you there and then. So regardless of my footballing ability, I was cut there and then. And my dad drove me to the gym and was like, you're going to get fit. Like, you're going to understand the importance of being fit. And sort of from there, I just trained, and I did mostly run on the treadmill and went on the bike and stuff like that. But then occasionally when my dad would leave, I would go and train with weights because he wasn't particularly happy with me training with weights at a young age. Because obviously the stigma that is around it. And at the time, this was like 15, 20 years ago, there was a lot of under-education about, weight training with teenagers and stuff like that. So yeah, every time he'd leave, I'd sneak into the weight area, train some weights. And then eventually when I became very fit, within 4 or 5 weeks, and started sort of at the age of 17 being paid to play football. And then I left when my best mate left for a scholarship out in America. And I sort of just gave football up. And then I just focused more on weight training. I competed for the first time when I was 22. I competed every single year till I was 25. And at 25, I sort of realized I was a better coach than I was a bodybuilder. And at the time, I only coached guys. I didn't coach girls at all. I didn't coach girls at all for the first 3 years of me coaching. And not because I was unsuccessful at coaching guys. I was very successful at coaching guys. My first 4 athletes all won their shows, which was really, really good. And then I was approached by a couple of girls who were like, we'd really like to do figure. And I thought, I look at these figure shows and they're similar to bodybuilding. You have to be proportioned, you have to be conditioned, you have to be well presented. So I was like, okay, I'll give figure a go, but I still didn't do bikini. So I began to prep more figure girls. And at the time I began to increase my knowledge in terms of female endocrinology and female biomechanics and everything that was just related to training a female. So and then I was approached by a couple of bikini girls who were quite high profile at the time. And they said, listen, we'd love to work with you, Rob. We've seen the way that you coach the figure girls, and we've seen, that you go to all the shows and you're there for your athletes and stuff like that. And then it just fell sort of into coaching more females than guys. And now I probably only coach a handful of guys and, probably 70 to 80 females at one time. So yeah, that's sort of the background in terms of how I got into being a coach. So, and then obviously moving from football to bodybuilding, from bodybuilding to coaching, and that's sort of the what would you call it, time span of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, do you say are the similar traits between those who've achieved their pro card with you?
So some of the similar traits that we'll be looking at is things like dedication, and dedication doesn't just mean like I ate my meals and I did my cardio. It means sort of having everything work around competing, having everything work around your goals. If your highest goal is I want to be a pro and I want to go to the Olympia, then everything needs to work around that. Your job, your relationships, everything needs to work around that. You need to be able to look at your job and say, right, does my job allow me to eat at all the times I want to eat? Does my job allow me to train at all the times I need to train? Is my life built around being a pro? Because all of the athletes that I've helped turn pro bar one have done that. They've looked at everything, and there's times and possibilities where they've said, you know what, I'm not going to take this promotion at work because this promotion at work will mean more pressure, more stress, more hours, and more time away from fitness. And people will say, well, that's stupid. You've turned down a promotion at work to pursue a goal which might never happen. And you're right, it might never happen, but at least you're giving yourself the best shot for it to happen. So, as I said, people who I've worked with and people who have reached the highest level of the sport, like the Olympia, and again, I'll use an athlete as an example, like Ria. Like, I know Ria dedicates her whole life to competing and to being around the right people and to making sure that everything fits into her schedule. And if it doesn't fit into her schedule and it doesn't allow her to move closer to her ultimate goal, then she's not interested in doing it. And that counts for jobs, relationships, people, everything. Like, if you cannot see that someone is either helping you or not helping you, then you won't achieve your goal. If you can see that someone is almost pulling you back a little bit and you allow that person to continue to stay in your life and in your circle, and you don't remove that person because you feel bad for removing that person, then you eventually won't get to your goal, unfortunately. So one of the biggest traits that I can say is that people prioritize everything to their ultimate goal. They put their ultimate goal on a pedestal and they say, this is what I am going to achieve and this is how I need to do it. And the people, as I said, who do turn pro, all sacrifice a lot, more than just missing meals with their friends, more than just missing nights out. They sacrifice everything to get to that goal. And that's one of the biggest traits of people who are successful.
Yeah, no, I really get that. Okay, and this is kind of going back to when we started about what it takes to be a pro. But as a combined question, do you think that judging is different at pro level, and also do you think that there is a kind of difference in physique between like European athletes and say American athletes?
American athletes, I'll be honest, I don't see enough of them to answer that question and to be honest and answer it honestly. So but there is certainly a difference between UK athletes and European athletes, and there most certainly is a difference in shows and what the judges look for. In terms of like judging on a pro level, I don't see much difference. Like between amateurs and pros, in terms of the judging and what they're looking for, there isn't much of a difference. Okay. If you're looking at like a UK show versus a European show, generally the girls who compete in Europe are a little bit bigger, they're a little bit harder, they're a little bit leaner, and that's across all classes. That's across figure and bikini. So you'll find that the girls are harder, leaner, drier across the board. Yeah. And those are then the girls who are more successful. You could pick up a winner from Europe potentially, put them in a UK show, and the UK judges would say at times they're too lean for the class. Yeah. And I've seen that happen multiple times. And that's not something that's happened recently. That's something that's happened even in the days of the UK BFF. Even in the days of the UK BFF, we would take athletes over to the Arnold Classic and they do exceptionally well at the Arnold Classic. And I'll use another example here so people have real life examples. When I was prepping Mel, for example, Mel was the highest placing UK figure athlete across the board at the Arnold Classics. She placed 5th at the Arnolds, and nobody in the whole of the UK figure athletes placed higher than her. She brought an almost identical package to the UK finals, and she didn't make the top 6. So she went from being the highest placing UK athlete, and there was plenty of UK athletes at that show, the highest placing UK athlete, then coming across to the UK, bringing a very, very similar look, which in my eyes was what figure should have been. Yeah. And then she didn't make the top 6 and was told she's too lean. So there's a direct comparison, like between the European judges and between the UK judges. So again, going back to my point of picking the right coach, your coach needs to understand what you need to look like at each show. When I send girls over to Europe, I make sure they are peeled. Like I make sure they are so conditioned that you can see serrations throughout. If I'm prepping someone for a UK show, I need to make sure that we pull back a little bit on that. I make sure that they're a little bit softer. Their glutes are not as hard, because when they are, they'll be told, unfortunately, you're too lean for this show. So there certainly is a difference between UK and Europe. And that difference a lot of the time is condition size, and dryness as well. So those girls who are going out to Europe or potentially thinking about doing a European show next year, you have to be very, very, very conditioned. And then you have to then combine a little bit of dryness and more fullness with that as well. Whereas if you're looking at the UK shows, it's more of a fuller, rounder looking bikini.
Yeah.
And also the girls in the UK are a little bit softer than what they are in Europe as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I did notice when I saw you at the show in Amsterdam the end of last year, I did notice that all the bikini girls I was against, they were substantially bigger than, you know, I'd been against before in the UK, and really conditioned as well. So definitely. Okay, and then going on, do you find that you have to coach people who are pros any differently from those who are amateur?
It's a lot easier to coach a pro as an amateur. It's a hell of a lot easier. And again, this is one of my gripes with the industry, is that people will look at people coaching top athletes and say they are top coaches. And I don't doubt that they are top coaches, but it doesn't take a top coach to coach a top athlete. It takes a very good coach to move somebody from an average amateur to a pro to a good pro. That's what a good coach would do. They take an average amateur, turn them into a pro, and then make them a good pro. Because when you're at the pro level, you already have very, very good habits. Your habits are already ingrained in you. Because again, remember what I said, it takes time to be a pro.
Yeah.
It's unlikely you'll turn pro at your first show. It's unlikely you'll turn pro at your second show. But at the time you've done 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shows, the habits of dieting are ingrained in you. So again, when you're picking up a pro and you're trying to improve that pro's already got really good habits with training. They're never going to miss a session. They're never going to miss a meal. They're never going to miss a cardio session. They're never going to miss a treatment, because they understand the importance of each aspect. Whereas if you go back to an amateur, the amateur won't understand the fact that they have to rest. The amateur won't understand that they have to do everything in their power to be a pro.
Yeah.
And that's again where amateurs potentially miss out, is that they don't understand that they have to look at every aspect of the puzzle. So it's a lot harder to prep somebody who is a beginner doing their second show off a really shit first result. Like it's a lot harder to prep those people because they don't have the habits that a pro has. A pro, as I said, knows how important it is to get their meals in, how important it is to train to failure, how important it is to rest properly, how important it is to get treatment. And that pro has probably got better genetics than the person who is an amateur. Because again, they're combining the fact that they are working incredibly hard with very, very good genetics, and it makes a really good pro. So in terms of prepping and helping pros, it's incredibly easy. It's incredibly easy because all the habits and routines and everything are ingrained already. They're there already. But when you go from a beginner, just think of yourself as a beginner, for example. So people listening to this podcast, think of yourself as a beginner. Think about how many times you didn't put 100% into your session. You didn't quite understand the importance of getting a meal at that time. You didn't understand the importance of rest. You didn't understand the importance of getting your treatments done. And of course, it's a coach's job to educate you in that, but that education process takes time. And again, looking at time, where a pro, I don't have to educate a pro. They know that. Yeah, I say to them, make sure you're getting treatment once a week. They say, cool, no problem, I'm already on that. Whereas an amateur will say, well, why do I need to get treatment once a week? And then again, this conversation might take a few days. Well, you need to get treatment because you need to look after your muscles. The importance of rest is really, really important. So I need you to go and get a treatment. Okay, what treatment do I get? And now, for example, this is taking time. And this is just one part. This is just a treatment part. Again, looking at an amateur and saying to them, right, I need you to work on your shoulders, your glutes, and your quads. Awesome. I'm looking at a pro, I'm saying, you need a little bit more delt, you need a little bit more quad, you need a little bit more glute. Those little bits are not going to take as long as the amateur to make those improvements as well. So again, people will look at like all these guys and girls, like coaching genetic freaks who have impeccable habits, who are making exponential gains, to say that's the best coach in the industry. When you look at an amateur who's got absolutely no routine, who comes to you with no principles of rest, training, and you make that person like, even if you turn that person into a regional show winner, that transformation to go from nothing to a regional show winner is far bigger than somebody who is a pro, who has great habits and all this stuff ingrained, gaining 4 or 5 pounds. Like that's the difference. Prepping pros, so easy, because their habits and routines are already so much on point. It's unbelievable. But prepping that amateur, that's the hard part there. That's the really hard part.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so I mean, obviously this is kind of person dependent, but would you recommend someone who they've just achieved their pro card with you, would you recommend them to then take an off season, or would you say, why not just have a go at a pro debut, like to test the water? I mean, I guess this depends on how much growth they potentially have to do to place at pro level.
Sure, yeah, like it is person dependent, and again, time will dictate that as well. So, say for example, you turn pro at an amateur Olympia. A lot of the times, the pro shows the next day.
Yeah.
If the pro shows the next day and you're already in shape, I'd generally say go do it. Just because that you're there, you can test the waters, you can see where you fit, you can then have a look at where you need to improve. But if there's no pro shows in and around that time, like say for example, there's like a 5 or 6 week gap between a pro show, I'd probably say don't do it, because you've probably been dieting 15, 16 weeks anyway, and then you're going to diet for another 6 or 7 weeks for a pro debut where potentially you won't come in at your best.
Yeah.
So someone, for example, again, I'll use real life examples, like Phoebe was in my opinion, pro ready when she turned pro. She was ready to be a pro. And that first season of hers showed that, because she never placed outside the top 3. So that she showed that she was ready to be a pro. But somebody like Milena, who turned pro last year at the Amateur Olympia, she had a very, very good amateur physique, like an exceptional amateur physique. But she didn't have a physique which was pro ready yet. So with her, for example, we've taken 18 months off, and we will be competing at the beginning of next year. So somebody like that, I said, right, you have an exceptional physique for an amateur, but you need another level to step up to the pros. So we've taken the time off to work on the areas that she needs to work on. And she will, when she competes next year, surprise a lot of people, because she has made some incredible progress in a short space of time. And as I said to you, she was a top amateur. She went to Vegas and placed top 3. She done the Amateur Olympia in Portugal, placed top 2, and it was just her time at the Amateur Olympia in the UK for her to get that card. But she wasn't pro ready yet, so she was somebody who needed a longer off season. In the figure class, that's a little bit different. In the figure class, I've very rarely seen anybody who turns pro and is good enough to compete as a pro straight away. Because the size required in the figure class is a lot different. And the pro level figure girls are like beyond belief. Seeing them in real life like is another level. And again, we'll use a real life example. Like Barbara turned pro 2018. There were pro shows in and around about the time she turned pro, but again, I looked at her physique and we looked at it and said, is this ready to step on a pro stage or not? And in our opinion, it wasn't. So we went away. We took like a 16-month off season, and then dieted down into the Romania show 2019, and she made top 5 at her pro debut. And people don't understand how good a pro debut that is. Like, that is unbelievable. To make top 5 at your pro debut is absolutely unbelievable. And a lot of the figure girls went out to Romania this year round, and not a single one made the top 10. So again, putting that into perspective, Barbara didn't just make the top 10, she didn't just make the top 6, she made the top 5. She earned herself points to go to the Olympia. And as I said, a lot of the figure girls went out there this year, some of them with the expectation, I'm going to win this show. They didn't even make the top 10. So people don't understand how good of a pro debut that is. So when you're going into these pro shows and making top 5, that's exceptional. Like, that's beyond exceptional. So yeah, in terms of answering your question, like as a bikini athlete, like the muscle required isn't as much. So your off seasons can be a little bit shorter. But very rarely will you see an amateur who is ready to mix it with the pros. Figure, very, 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 very rarely. I saw a girl who did the Amateur Olympia, then made second at the pro show, Sarah or something her name is, I'm sure it is, blonde girl.
Yeah.
But that's a real rarity. That's a real rarity. Very, very rarely will you see that. Like, I can't, at the Amateur Olympia where Ria got her pro card, the woman who won the amateur show the day before won the pro show the very next day. But those are the only two girls that I can think of that I've seen for the last 5 years ever do that.
Yeah.
Other than that, in figure, it's very much a building process. So yeah, if people are lucky enough to get their pro card and they've worked hard enough to get their pro card, and there is a pro show the very next day, I'd probably say do it. But if it is 4, 5, 6 weeks away, I would honestly be criticizing your physique in a positive way and saying, am I ready to step up to that level yet? If you're not, there's nothing wrong with taking an off season. Your goal for that year probably would have been, I want to turn pro. You can tick that goal off. Your goal for next year is, I want to make my pro debut. My goal for the year after, I want to make the top 5. My goal for the year after, I want to make top 3, and start building up those goals.
Because I know with like the men's classes, of course, there's weight categories, so it increases, doesn't it? When you get your pro card, the weight goes up a little bit. But do you think that you can kind of say you've built a lot of muscle, and I mean, I'm talking more in terms of bikini here, can you kind of out muscle could you not achieve your pro card because they would say that you are too muscular, like because you've almost aimed already at pro level, that you've put yourself kind of out because you don't fit in with the lineup anymore of amateurs?
It will all depend on the lineup. It will all depend on the lineup that you're in. You know, if you are in a lineup of bigger girls, like in terms of muscularity, not height, if you're in a lineup of bigger girls in terms of muscularity and you're quite petite, then you're either going to place first or last. And then vice versa. If you're slightly more muscular and you're in a lineup of very petite girls, you're either going to place first or last. And again, that's where the luck factor comes into it as well. You know, if you are a slightly more muscular bikini girl and you turn up and everybody in bikini that day is small and they don't quite have the muscularity that you have, there is a possibility you'll place last, even though you look the best. Even though you look the best, because what you've got is you've got 7 small girls and 1 big girl. So that girl either plays first because she stands out and she beats everybody else, or she plays last because on that day she stood out for the wrong reasons. So it all depends on the lineup on the day. When you go into the overall, it's all about what the judges like on the day. Do they like tall, short, blonde, like overall is very different. But when you're looking at a class win, if you turn up and you're the biggest girl, then either you'll place first or last, or you should place first or last. If you're the smallest girl, again, you should place first or last, because on the day, if everybody's small and you're small, then great. If everybody's big and you're small, then you don't fit the look that day.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, and then so with pros, what do you think that the difference is between being a pro but then being a top level pro?
So if you're looking at like top 6 Olympians, just say, so if you're looking at top 6 Olympians, genetics play a huge role in that, like in a massive role. And you know, is your waist small? If your waist isn't small, you could probably still turn pro. But if your waist is a little bit blocky and a little bit thick, when you get to the 1%, that 1% of your waist being a bit thicker will stand out. And when you get to that level, it is, again, so much based on genetics. Like at the top level, the top tier is based on genetics. Do you have a wide set of shoulders? If you haven't got wide clavicles, you can't really do anything about it. Yeah, you can start to hit your medial delt a little bit more and grow a little bit more through your delts, but it's never going to look as good as somebody who has big delts and wide clavicles. So when you get to that elitist level, and I really mean like the top elitist level, like the genetics are so different. Sitting at the Olympia last year, I sat 1 row back from the Olympia, so I sat behind the judges. Like the difference in people is so minute. I mean, like so minute. This girl might have a 1/2 inch smaller waist and a 1/2 inch bigger delt, but the illusion that she can create is so ridiculously different. And that will be the difference between somebody who places 10th at the Olympia and somebody who places first. is that it's minute, tiny, microscopic detail. But when you go down the sort of ladder and you're looking at like amateurs, good amateurs, pros, pro to good pro to great pro, the difference isn't minute details. It's generally, it's not genetics when you go down the ladder. It's more like work ethic and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay, I get that. So last big question, what do you think it takes to be a good coach?
You have to care, like to start with, like you really have to care about what people want to achieve.
Yeah.
So I see coaches and I've known coaches who are simply just in this to earn a buck. Like, and it's a very easy way to earn a buck, you know, to earn a good salary as a coach, you probably only need 20, 30 clients. Like if I have 30 clients and I'm charging £100 a month, then I'm pulling in £3 grand a month. I'm pulling in 36 grand a year, which is above the average wage in the UK. And I've got 30 clients charging them £100 a month, just saying, yeah, cool, don't worry, keep going. So, like, first and foremost, you have to care. Like, you have to care. And if you care, then you also then have to be honest in your approach to coaching. And being honest in your approach to coaching isn't always nice. Like, it isn't always nice. People think, like, being nice is, oh, you know, don't worry, you're doing so well. Being nice is just being honest with people and making sure that people know what's realistic and achievable. If I have an amateur come to me who's never competed before, who's done 6 months worth of training and says, I want to be a pro next year, it would be nice for me to say, oh, of course you can do it. Don't worry, like, you're going to smash it. But that's not being nice in the sense that I see nice. My response, if I look at that person, they've done 6 months worth of training, they barely got any muscle, I say, you know what, you need to pull your goals down a little bit. And that's being a good coach, is saying to someone, this goal that you have of being a pro, it's a great goal to have, but I want to push it 6 months back. I want to push it 12 months back. I want to push it 18 months back. I think it's a realistic goal for you if you're dedicated and you're on point with everything, but it's not quite there yet. It should be next year, or it should be the year after. Again, and having the knowledge and experience to know, right, how far away is that person from that goal, and then giving them an honest answer. Again, it is part of being a coach. Like, there's loads of aspects to being a good coach. You know, the caring part is really, really important.
Yeah.
The honest part is really, really important. The knowledge part isn't as important, because knowledge you can pick up as you go. You can become more educated. You can go and see the best. Like, I watched a program with Kobe Bryant the other day, and they asked him, how did he become so good? And he said he went to Goat Mountain. So he went to the greatest, if you don't know what GOAT stands for, it stands for greatest of all time. So he went to Goat Mountain and he spoke to Michael Jordan. He spoke to Magic Johnson. He spoke to Larry Bird. And put that into the perspective of coaching. If you are somebody who wants to become a coach, speak to the best coaches. And that's why knowledge, to start with, it isn't that important. You must have the basics, of course, how to write a diet, how to write a training plan, how to adjust somebody's food and stuff like that. But don't think knowledge is the be all and end all, because you can put yourself in a place where you go to Goat Mountain. You can go and speak to the best coaches. You can go and learn from the best endocrinologists. You can go and learn from the best people about training. And then you can build up that knowledge and experience. So don't think, well, you know, this person's not a good coach because they haven't got great knowledge. If that person has base knowledge and they're going out and seeking knowledge all the time, then that person will soon become a very good coach. So don't think like knowledge is like in the top 2 of what someone should be. Actually caring, being honest, having a base knowledge is going to be really, really important, but making sure you consistently and constantly work on that base knowledge. Like, I'm a big fan of making sure that you go to shows, go to shows, look at your athletes, make sure that you're there to help them. And again, that comes down to caring. But yeah, those would be some of the real aspects that I would be looking for. You know, I'm always one to say you should go to a coach who has achieved the things that you want to achieve. If you want to be a pro, make sure you go and see a coach that's helped people be a pro. Like, because otherwise, like I said at the start of the podcast, they've got no idea what you should look like at 6 weeks out. They've got no idea what you should look like at 4 weeks out. They've got no idea what you should look like at 2 weeks out. You need to go and see somebody who has that experience and is able to say, you are exactly on track from where you need to be, or you need to push a little bit harder, or we need to ease off. And again, having that knowledge and experience of, right, you're somebody who does get very lean and we can fill you out nicely, so I want you to go and do a European show. Or you're somebody who brings a slightly softer look, so let's look at these UK shows or these other shows where they like softer looks and head towards that. But again, not everybody has that knowledge and not everybody has that experience to go and, or to know that. So again, going to Goat Mountain and saying, right, tell me, I've got a girl doing the European show, tell me what she needs to look like. Right, she needs to be hard, lean, dry, full. Great. I've got a girl doing a UK show, tell me what she needs to look like. She needs to be A, B, C, D. So going to that and seeking that knowledge is really, really important. But we live in a society where people think that's, you know, stick being up somebody's ass to go and do that. Like, that's not being up somebody's ass. That's helping and helping yourself move forward.
Yeah, and for your own interest. I mean, you know, as coaches, part of it is that we enjoy learning and that we want to be better. So it's never bad to go and ask somebody what they did, or, you know, even if you realize that that's the wrong thing to do or something, you've learned from that as well, I think.
Absolutely. You will learn more from losing than you'll learn from winning. Because the reason when people win is they win and they think, oh, I've done it. I've nailed it. You know, it's easy. This stuff's easy. But when you lose, you are a lot harder on yourself. You're the biggest critic. If you win, what you'll find is that when people win, they don't really criticize. Like they'll win and they'll be like, oh, I've done it. You know, I won. Obviously, I've brought the right package to that show. But you might win a shit show. You might win a show where everybody is crap. Like, and that's no disrespect to anybody who turns up, but you might win a really, really, really poor show. And if you win a really, really poor show and your head and your ego grow and you're like, you know what, I don't need to change anything. You'll go to a harder show and you'll place dead last. And you could have brought exactly the same package, but that package now is crap, it's terrible, it all went so wrong. You fixate on placing, but you brought exactly the same package to 2 weeks ago at a shit show and you won. But because your head and your ego got too big, you didn't criticize yourself in the right way. And you didn't say, right, well, actually, I could have been leaner. I could have been a little bit more dedicated to my diet. I could have pushed harder on cardio. Next time, I'm going to go and do that. But when you do not win and you play second, third, fourth, fifth, however, you start to say, you know what? I could have pushed harder. Could have done more. I should have not been stupid and ate burgers, whatever, like, you know, whatever, however you may deem it. When you win, you generally don't look at that. When you lose, you're like, oh man, you know what? I could have learned, I could have done this, I could have done that. So losing will teach you so much more than winning. Yeah,
I agree. Thank you for that. That's loads of really, really vital information, I think, for everyone. So last little questions. When you were competing, what was your favorite stage pose?
Probably side tricep.
Cool. Favorite place you've been in the world?
Rome. Rome is unbelievable. If you haven't been to Rome, like, it's so beautiful in terms of a place, and it's great because actually in Rome you can walk everywhere as well. Like, you haven't got to get taxis and stuff, and there's like always something to do. So yeah, Rome is the best place I've ever been to.
It's beautiful, yeah. And favorite kind of cheat meal?
I'm a dessert person, really. I don't like have a cheat meal. Like, I would just have a nice dessert. So for example, last night was Saturday, and I just had vanilla ice cream with some Biscoff, and then like a bit of Terry's chocolate orange.
Nice. And who is your favorite bodybuilder of all time?
Bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman, because he was the best in the era where I was growing up in bodybuilding. And he is a character. I've met him a couple of times. He is such a character. Like, he when people portray him on like YouTube, he always comes across really dumb and stupid and simple. But he is very, very intelligent, and he is somebody you could sit and have a conversation with about anything. Like politics, you could speak to him about. You could speak to him about the weather. You could speak to him about favorite places. Like, he is such a good, down to earth person, and he's not this dummy that he's portrayed who just chucks around weight. Like, he's actually a very, very educated person, and he was always very, very friendly as well when I met him.
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Rob, and your time. Do you still have places for coaching if anyone is inquiring?
Not me personally, no. So I'm full at the moment, so there is a waiting list. But obviously yourself and the other TeamLRF coaches, we still filter through. So if anybody is unsure and say, well, actually, I want to coach with Rob, everybody who is a coach under TeamLRF is mentored directly by me. I see all their diets before they get sent out. I speak to them about weekly changes. So they're all directly mentored by me. So if you say, well, actually, I want to come and coach with Rob, I'm not available at the moment. You'll go onto my waiting list. But if you do want a space now, still contact myself at Instagram is team_LRF or info@teamlrf.co.uk. And one of the other coaches will be able to help you. And I said, I will always mentor them directly and help them write the plans and like change the plans for you to head in the right direction.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for all your time and all the information. I learnt loads, so I'm sure that everyone else will as well.
Brilliant, my pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, have a lovely day. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Bye-bye.